Hi, I'm Lydia, and I'm here to tell you about the moment my family came clean. This wasn't my place. Going into my sister's wedding, I was prepared to party it up, pose for photos, and act like the model daughter that I always aspired to be. But I could tell something was wrong the minute I walked in. Finally, there it was, my seat. In the main hall, not at the family table, but crammed outside, next to the coat racks. Initially, I felt it was an error. That, however, was not the case. It had meaning, a message that conveyed the idea that you are unimportant, yet highlighted the dangers of ignoring someone for an extended period of time. After a while, they gave up on attempting to blend in. That night, I made a decision. After that, what transpired? It stunned everyone, to put it mildly. As I entered the venue's parking area, my fingers clenched a little too firmly around the wheel. The setting is a chic Chicago ballroom with priceless flower arrangements, marble flooring, and glistening chandeliers that would make my rent seem cheap. With the exception of my absence, this wedding had an air of pure opulence. Exiting my vehicle, I calmly straightened my navy blue outfit before setting foot outside. I didn't come here to stir any trouble. I came here not to turn this into an ego trip. I had long since accepted the fact that I was not the preferred sibling, and it was Lillian's day. I just did not anticipate that they would bring it up in such a shameful and public manner. Check-in booth inside, I was met by a wedding planner whose grin was too wide. "Who is this?" It was a chirp. "The name is Lydia." My speech sounded composed and under control. Little smirk crept over her face. "Seating map." My gut clenched. Change occurred on her face. "My condolences." By such expression, I was familiar. That expression was just repulsive. Little place card and said, "Oh, here you are," sitting, while before indicating a corridor just outside the magnificent ballroom, expression became frowny. "Pardon me?" She cheated and smiled again. "Your designated table is located just outside the main lobby." I glanced over at the enormous seating map propped up on the stand next to her. At the head of the aisle, beside the happy couple, stood my parents, London and Wayne. Inside were seats for Lillian's closest friends, Juan's distant relatives, and even the fiancé of one of his co-workers. It didn't have my name on it. I redirected my attention to the organizer. Some error has to be there. She clenched her jaw. "I'm sorry, but that seat is reserved for you." I began to feel a gradual sting in my chest, not even in the furthest corner of the ballroom. "No." As if I weren't important, they pushed me into the corridor. They were more like guests than relatives, and they had to make an effort to accommodate. Nevertheless, I clung to the absurd belief that this was only a mistake. I wished my own mother hadn't given in and let this happen. Across the room, I could see her standing with Lillian, her grin contagious as she fiddled with her clothing. As usual, my sister looked stunning, lovely, and loved. Lillian looked directly into my eyes, cocked her head, and grinned. All the information I needed was conveyed by that grin. I dragged myself along. I spoke softly to my mother. "Would you mind if I spoke to you briefly?" London hardly looked at me. "My sweetheart, this is not the right moment. We're very busy, aren't we?" "It will only be a second," I murmured with a clenched jaw. With an irritated but cooperative sigh, she moved to the side. Naturally, Lillian remained still. She did nothing except observe, her smirk expanding. I replied that I had just checked my seat. "There it is in the hallway." A contemptuous murmur escaped London's lips. At the main tables, Sloane, we had to give priority to members of the immediate family. Suddenly, I blinked. "Close relatives?" "I am well known in my family." Like I'd said something really ridiculous, London emitted an artificial, flimsy chuckle. "My darling, there's no need to be so theatrical." Lillian at last spoke. "Is your seat still in one piece?" Oh, how terrible! She sounded so sympathetic, but it was all an act. We all know that wedding preparation can be a complete disaster. There are a lot of minor nuances that are easy to miss. Her expression was one of pure delight. It was apparent to her. There was purpose behind this. I redirected my attention to my mom. "Are you really suggesting that I may sit outside the reception hall away from everyone, Mom?" The discussion was obviously boring to London as she moaned once more. "Sloane, this is not important." It's a big day for Lillian. Feel thankful that you are here. I am very thankful. The phrase lingered in my throat, unheard and stinging. Thank goodness I was not treated like a royal princess during my sister's wedding. Embrace the feeling of being overlooked, pushed aside, and left behind. My ever-passive and avoidant father, Wayne, stepped out at last, even though I was about to speak. "It's just seating, sweetheart," he said, avoiding eye contact. "Let's keep the atmosphere intact." There it was. He ended his remarks there. I chose not to reply at all. "I don't see the purpose." Out of the quiet came a fresh voice. "I find that arrangement intriguing." Valerie, Juan's mom, was standing close by with a champagne glass in her hand when I turned around to see her. She looked uncomfortably at Lillian for a moment before returning to me. A little rigidity set in at Lillian. With an awkward but polite grin, London greeted her. "Planning a wedding may be a real pain, Valerie. It was our sincere desire to make everyone's needs met." Valerie continued to hum incredulously. Her gaze lingered on me for an extra second, as if deciphering some hidden meaning. I locked eyes with her, unsure of the meaning of what she said. Lillian deftly diverted the subject by slipping her arm around my mom's. "It might be wise to double-check the cake before the event begins, Mom." I was fired in an instant. There was music, clinking glasses, and laughing all around me in the ballroom. I felt like an outsider at this party. My presence was unwelcome. With my heart racing, I strode away, neither toward the corridor nor toward my designated table. As I looked down at the place card, I could almost feel the graceful cursive writing of my own name. I carefully placed it on a tray that was close by after turning it over a couple of times. They clearly didn't know me well if they assumed I would passively accept this. With my fingers curling around the hem of my dress, I lean against the chilly wall and fixate on the dimly lighted corridor. The huge ballroom resounds with distant music, clinking glasses and laughter, a realm from which I was never formally a part. The feeling of being alone is nothing new. Even though it's more severe this time, the shame seems strangely familiar, like an old wound being opened again. There was purpose behind this. It was their intention for me to feel little and unimportant. God forbid they were successful. The knot in my chest isn't limited to this second. It's a result of years of being overlooked and second best. Before I can resist, my thoughts take a detour into the past. My parents let me stay at their home for a while 3 years ago, and I remember going through my old bedroom. It was obvious that it had been a while since I had been home. My childhood books lay unread in a corner, and the framed images on the wall seemed to have stood still for years. Until I gave up trying, I excelled in every academic setting. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I was just passing the time while my mom finished making the extravagant supper she had planned for Lillian's arrival. Lillian was always in the center. It finally hit me. On my mother's nightstand, there was a little leather notepad protruding. I debated whether or not to open it, but its discreet placement gave it an air of importance and significance that eventually won me over. The inside is a treasure trove of well-documented anecdotes, notes, and ideas. In relation to Lillian, her favorite meals, her problems, her birthdays, her childhood pals, and even a list of things she liked, or pretended to like, just to be nice. I kept turning the pages, hoping to find any information about who I am. Aside from her other daughter, not a single word was ever written about her. To all appearances, I had vanished. I stood there, my hands hurting from holding the notepad so firmly. Confirmation in writing after a lifetime of uncertainty. My mom hardly flinched when she entered the room. "Oh, darling, you've always had your own spirit. Lillian, I've never been worried about you before." Like that was meant to be a praise or something. The idea was that it would undo all the years of subtle disregard. She had meticulously documented every detail of Lillian, but she had not given any consideration to my value. At that very second, I understood. In this household, I had always been the only one. I am jolted back into the here and now when the sharp sound of Lillian's laughter pierces the air. The burden of that dreadful notepad continues to bear down on my chest even as I type this. I take one look at my designated table and think about how harsh, insensitive, and insulting that is. I got the message if they were trying to let me know where I am. As I force myself to get off the wall, I take a deep breath in. It could have been time for my family to start acting like I didn't belong if they had already made up their minds. My thoughts are racing as I make my way to the ballroom, but I see Juan standing just outside the entrance. With a tumbler of whiskey in his hand, he stands off to the side near the bar, but he shows no signs of drinking. His expression is one of bewilderment as he scans the audience, unlike a newlywed. They seem to be fixated on something or someone else, yet their hesitancy is obvious. Eventually, they zero in on me. He takes a deep breath in and out, then gets up from the counter and comes over to me. The name is Lydia. His voice is smooth and composed, although it betrays an underlying quality. One eyebrow goes up. "Hello, Juan." We stand silent for a while. As we watch, the wedding goes on around us, with guests drinking, laughing, and rejoicing as the celebration continues despite the deteriorating foundation. With a quick motion, Juan spins the whiskey glass in his hand and then looks over his shoulder to see Lillian presiding over the room, enjoying her reflection. Jaw to clench, at it again. Voice is now lower as he begins. "Though we haven't had many conversations, I have a question for you." Head. It's subjective. The civilized way of discussing a wedding, or what? Only does he not fake, he also does not grin. Feel a change inside. Sigh and a stroke of his temple. Juan rubs his regrets into his skin. "Way your sister talks about me change while I'm not there?" Was only one question. Been feeding him begins to crumble. About being dishonest for a little moment. By an erroneous belief in the need to keep oneself safe. Perhaps it's because it's risky to reveal the truth in this kind of environment. However, my seat assignment suddenly comes to mind. This smug expression on Lillian's face is still fresh in my mind. I still remember how my mom kicked me out. Oh, and I do recall Lillian's true identity. In passing, I notice his whiskey glass. "It would be wise for you to taste it first." Dom tenses up. He proceeds to bring the glass to his mouth and sucks it all down. "Juan," I say with great care, "it seems like your knowledge of Lillian is lacking." He clenches his jaw. That was terrifying to me. The space between us is filled with a dense, stifling silence. She has been performing. "Different," he adds at last, his voice now lower and almost frustrated. "In charge. She has stuff she would like I not see." A knot forms in my gut, for the simple reason that there are. Valerie shows up before I get a chance to reply. Her face remains expressionless as she approaches us. Her gaze is piercing, performing calculations. The one lady in this room who has more authority than Lillian, her new mother-in-law. Valerie comes to a halt in Juan's path, briefly looking in my direction before returning to him. She says, "My darling," with an air of perfection. "In my opinion, you need to watch this." She proceeds to extend her phone. Juan reluctantly accepts it, scrolling down as his expression changes from bewilderment to realization to something far worse. Messenger messages from Lillian to those who should not know her innermost thoughts and feelings, including her stylist and friends, for the reason that her innermost thoughts and feelings are icy and decaying. The tone of the communications is harsh, mean, and vicious. Lillian belittles Valerie, accusing her of being domineering and controlling and saying that Valerie is nothing more than a wealthy old lady who should simply sign the checks and go. Lillian discussing Juan, the ways in which she is shaping him into the ideal spouse she seeks. He is so eager to show himself superior to his dad that he would do everything she asks. The worst part is when Lillian starts giggling about how simple the marriage will be. Why? Because Juan's family is well off, and she can get away with just playing the role. Juan grips the phone tightly. Valerie keeps a close eye on him. "Juan, your soon-to-be wife loathes me, but that's not all." Her unruffled but razor-sharp voice causes her to halt. "From the very beginning she has plotted to exert influence over you." As if the ground beneath him had suddenly parted, Juan sways ever so slightly. I remain silent. Because I am not here for this. Here it is, his. I only observe as his demeanor transforms from uncertainty to fury. Even though the wedding is taking place, the groundwork is already beginning to crumble. Even if the wedding is still in the works, everything will alter after the family gathering that takes place behind closed doors. As we are led into a private lounge, I watch the flow of people. You can feel the type of stress that clings to your skin in the thick, heavy air. Right in the middle of it all, Lillian is acting as if she is completely calm. With her arms crossed and her lips squeezed together in an unintelligible line, Valerie stands at the entryway. Juan stands stiffly at the bar, his drink unfinished. Vivienne is undeniably talking, smoothing, and making excuses right now. She tries to put on a thin, forced grin and claims that everything is simply a misunderstanding. Moods are crazy. Well, it is a wedding, so a little family strife shouldn't be allowed. Family, eyes and echoes. Is no tension here, Vivienne. Saw it coming. Scoffing mockingly, Lillian crosses her arms over her costly frock. With a sugary voice, she turns to Juan. Please assure me that you do not believe this rubbish, my darling. He gives her the silent treatment. With her voice now down, Vivienne gently extends her arm toward him. You must comprehend, Juan, my darling. Lillian has gone through a lot. Wedding planning is a lot of work. Sayings that are not meant are common. Valerie's furrows her brow. It was funny since her threats to exert control over him seemed extremely serious. The tension in Lillian's jaw tightens as she prepares to respond. But Wayne breaks the silence with his words. Stop, Vivienne. Although softly said, the impact is akin to that of a gunshot. As if taken aback by the interruption, my mother looks up and blinks. When my dad gets angry, he doesn't yell or step in. However, when is tomorrow? This evening, a change occurs. His voice is weary and heavy with an emotion I can't identify as he tells Lillian that you've shielded her from harm her whole life. And see what it has done to her. A look of true amazement crosses Lillian's face as she lets out a gasp. Hey, Dad! Are you siding with her? Wayne looks beyond her and directly at me. Lydia has always been correct. Those words keep echoing in my head. I take a deep breath. In fact, my mom shudders. My father is picking me out, and it's never happened before. As if something went wrong, Vivienne uncomfortably laughs and shakes her head. Wayne, take a deep breath. Lillian is dishonest. Juan starts to talk before he knows it. His speech sounds unprocessed, as if he has only recently realized he has been sleeping with an unknown person. A pale Lillian. Pardon me? I go cautiously forward, meeting my mother's gaze. Please, she must grasp the gravity of this moment. I want her to know how heavy it is. Mom, I'll tell you softly that you'll lose more than just me if you continue to shield her. This is Vivienne's first time fumbling. Lillian notices it. Plus, she goes into a state of terror. Frustration seeping into her voice causes it to become sharper. Is she the reason you're all plotting my demise? Valerie takes a deep breath, sips her drink, and then delivers the killing blow. We're betraying you now that we know your true nature. Lillian shivers and flinches, her gaze flitting from one person to another. Except at this moment, she has always had command. The most deadly sort of animal is a wounded one, and Lillian is not going down without a fight. Something electric and crisp permeates the stuffy air of the VIP lounge. The air is thick with tension, and nobody dares to talk or move for fear of setting it off. Standing rigidly, Lillian holds her gown's fabric so firmly that the seams strain, her breath short. She is well aware that she is losing control. With a hushed but frantic voice, Vivienne firmly grasps her daughter's arm. Hold it, Lillian! However, Lillian remains unbowed. Yes, she is unable to. She refuses. Juan remains silent across the room. The weight of his silence crushes Lillian's meticulously constructed world more than any charge could. The guy who just promised his sister eternal love catches my sight, and I can sense the uncertainty in his gaze. A chillier, more repulsive feeling than uncertainty. An inkling of contentment flits over my chest, but I stifle it. This is far from done. With her pupils constricted, Lillian looks at me after a short, sharp breath. Do you really believe in your own intelligence? Underneath her calm, low voice is a quiver. I lock eyes with her. Lillian, I know, I don't need to think about it. Her mouth twitches, but it's far from a grin. It's a darker, more fragile substance. Jealousy has always consumed you toward me. I almost find the claim amusing since it is so ludicrous and predictable, on the verge. But I turn my head instead. Is it jealousy? What is it made of? The reality that deceit and manipulation are necessities for maintaining your social circle? To Juan, Valerie, and our own parents, I make a gesture. Pay attention, Lillian. Your reality is contracting. Her jaw tightens. After that, I aim to kill. Your speech was measured, and you played your game effectively. You did, however, overlook something. Lillian recoils in fear because I know your true identity. The effect is slight, but noticeable. A quick breath is drawn in by London. No amount of bluffing can fool her. My voice is gentle yet resolute as I approach. The messages, the money, and everything you've said about your spouse are all known to me. My eyes dart to Juan. The things you've said about his relatives. Juan becomes sottish. The color drains from Lillian's face. My mom begs me for an intervention for the very first time. Glancing around, London's palms tremble with fear. Lydia, she murmurs low, your sister she is still. Disregard this if you so choose. The sound of nothingness, and I pause for an extremely brief instant. My mother has never looked at me in such a way before, and it's not because I feel sorry for Lillian, as if she is terrified of me or needs me. However, the hesitancy is temporary, because I am aware that Lillian would not hesitate if we were in the opposite position, and her outbursts demonstrate it. Is she the reason you're all plotting my demise? With a raw and cracking voice and quivering hands, Lillian delivers her performance. She has harbored animosity for me all her life, and now you're going to put her word ahead of your own daughter? Valerie takes a deep breath in, brings her glass up to her lips, and then hits the last blow. We're betraying you now that we know your true nature. The words were as sharp as a slap. Lillian opens and closes her lips. Juan, her last opportunity for dominance, catches her eye. As she extends her hand toward him, her voice quivers. Surely you don't put your faith in them. Juan remains silent. That stillness? She is facing the death penalty. She can feel Lillian's anxiety rising as her breathing becomes labored. And after that, her face contorted with anger as she charges forward. However, I will not budge on this occasion. Lillian swung her hand recklessly at me, but I hardly bat an eye. Neither do I need to duck nor squat. The distinction between us is now quite evident. My fear has subsided. Everyone here understands that Lillian is the one letting her guard down. In an instant, her hand slashes through the air, revealing her wrath and her desperation. Valerie intervenes to keep us apart before it connects. Instead, Lillian is knocked down by her, sending her reeling and gasping for air. She loses her footing and careens headfirst into the ballroom entryway as a result of her own careless actions. Plus, there's no turning back now. There is a silence. Discussions fizzle out. As the scene unfolds at the door, every single visitor in the reception gazes up in astonishment. The city of Lillian. A picture-perfect bride, a prince charming. The one who exerted unwavering control over the storyline. Remains still, untidy, and out of breath. She becomes an unrecognizable monster as her fury transforms her features. She quickly realizes that this is no longer a private altercation, but it's too late. It's embarrassing for everyone. The ballroom is filled with a low hum. Visitors murmur softly. Pupils enlarge. People look at each other. Some people just gaze. Juan remains still and observant as he stands close to the bar. Passing the time. Alarmed, Lillian whirls around to face him. I'm married to you! A high, thin voice trembles in her hands. I need you to be my rock. Juan takes a deep breath out. You can tell he's exhausted just by looking at his face. To be honest, I don't believe our paths ever crossed. Her death is hastened by their remarks. As Lillian stutters and trembles, she frantically shakes her head. The number. That is not what you mean. By your love, I am loved. Now, however, Juan doesn't look at anybody, neither enraged nor let down. I have completed it. Then, without saying a word more, he takes out a little packet from his jacket pocket. I take a deep breath. I am already familiar with the name, and so does Lillian. She loses all color in her face. What on earth? Explain it to me. Juan shows no emotion. Forms for annulment. Everyone in the room lets out a gasp. Its weight is heavy on me as well. This is the end. She painstakingly maintained an idealized image for years, and now it has died. As Lillian fixes her gaze on the package, her palms quiver with fear. Were you planning to do this? Courageous Valerie advances, her voice icy and her arms crossed. He did, of course. Lillian opens her mouth to speak, but she remains silent. After that, Valerie administers the death blow. This family was never going to accept you. With everything falling apart, Lillian stumbles backward. Still, she has more work to do. Despite losing her husband, Lillian has a lingering weapon: wanton destruction. Her flawlessly curled hair is ever so slightly tousled, her hands quiver at her sides, and her breath is rapid and irregular. No, this is far from done. This isn't her. She just won't accept it. Our mother gets a stern look from her. Hello, Mom! Her voice has become softer, revealing the perfect amount of vulnerability as she begs. This isn't true, as you well know. They are attempting to destroy me, you know. London acts hesitantly. Of course that's correct. For the better part of her life, she has covered up her own shortcomings and made excuses for Lillian's disaster. As she glances between her two children, my mom's lips split in a secret smile. Despite her incessant dismissal, she has never stopped protecting this one. Welcome to Lillian! With an unsteady voice, she begins, and Lillian makes the most of it. She holds London's hand tightly, pushing it to her chest as if in a theatrical recital. My mother? Everybody knows who I am. I adore Juan, you know that. Never would I. End it. That voice sounds icy. Final. Hello, Juan! Something is resting in his palm. A stack of documents with the top left unattached. His expression is unintelligible, but his hold is firm. Cold weather falls on Lillian. With a piercing look on her face, Valerie advances. Juan, go ahead, she urges with an air of calm confidence. Take a look at it. Juan's teeth grind together. Next, he starts speaking with an unnaturally serene tone. Hathaway, Lillian. 1 month before to the wedding, I spoke with a divorce lawyer. The visitors in the ballroom are still reeling from the sharp, collective gasp. My stomach sinks. I wasn't surprised. I just didn't anticipate it being this terrible. Juan keeps going. According to him, you were about to abandon me, and he speaks slowly, deliberately, and sharply, as soon as you could get your hands on my funds. His voice remains unshaken while the paper quivers ever so slightly in his palms. A pale Lillian. Valerie gives a low, unimpressed chuckle, so it's not. Oh, darling, don't even try, she says with an inclination of her head. A legally binding document is one that does not include any false information. The self-assurance of Lillian is crushed. To her, it seems like sand is sliding through her fingers as the room spins out of her grasp. Juan advances toward her. Nothing ever really existed, Lillian. There is an element of rawness about his voice. Feeling drained, not furious. Were we ever loved? Or was I only a prop that you used to flaunt? Lips tremble in Lillian. She looks around the room desperately, trying to find an ally. Then, as if driven by an innate need to stay alive, she suddenly turns to face me. With an escalating and trembling voice, she asserts that this is all on you. Jealousy has always consumed you toward me. You have it. Another old charge. This time, however, it misses its mark. Why? Because I am finally unconcerned. I refuse to be drawn in. To be honest, I'm not one to debate. I refuse to cater to her every whim. Lillian, I just look at her and tell her no. None of this is my fault. In response, she squirms. You have always been like Wei. Her heart races. To the front, I go. I keep my voice down. That is not necessary. You are manipulative. You are dishonest. You steal, steal, steal. Also, you never take responsibility for your actions, even when things go wrong. As if hearing the truth for the very first time, London lets out a quiet gasp. Aggressively, Lillian shook her head. Tell her she's incorrect, Mom. That's not right. Yet London remains still. She only looks. As for Lillian, the city, that quiet.